Two-Face is one of Batman's greatest adversaries, and given the macabre nature of the character's comics, it was always going to be the case that the villain will have gotten up to some horrendous acts over the years. Harvey Dent and his other personality, dubbed Big Bad Harv, have gotten up to a whole lot since first appearing in Detective Comics number 66. As is well known, since Two-Face had his origins explored, albeit with little tweaks in both Christopher Nolan's excellent The Dark Knight and the famous two-part episode Two-Face from Batman the Animated Series, Dent became Gotham's youngest district attorney at the age of 26 and took on the city's criminal underworld with Batman and Commissioner Gordon by his side, only to get scarred in court cross-examining a witness. The tragedy would unleash Dent's dormant other half and set him on a path to becoming one of the Dark Knight's most formidable adversaries. But Two-Face was also one of DC's most sympathetic characters. He was abused growing up, suppressed a dormant personality, and lost everything because of it. As a result, Harvey becomes one of Bruce Wayne's deadliest enemies, one with nothing to lose and a black and white morality that doesn't care about reason, empathy, or negotiation. So with that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, back from creating my own completely original character, Three-Face, to bring you the 8 worst things Two-Face has ever done. Number 8, he outed Montoya and framed her for murder. Gotham Central is one of the very best Batman comics to not actually revolve around the Dark Knight himself, focusing instead on the people who comprise the GCPD and what it's like to be a cop in a city full of super criminals. One of the series' biggest leads was Montoya, a character who had first appeared in the excellent Batman the Animated Series. The lauded Half a Life arc showcased Montoya being outed as a lesbian to her colleagues and the resulting fallout that came from it. It was a revolutionary story, and it later turned out that Two-Face was the villain responsible for exposing Montoya to her friends and family. Stemming from a previous encounter, Two-Face falls in love with Montoya and does all he can to ensure she has nothing left to go back to so they can be together. She's forced to come to terms with a hostile work environment and her own bigoted family because of Harvey's actions. The most heinous part of Dent's scheme involves framing Montoya for the murder of the PI who snapped her kissing her own partner, and he ends up busting her out when she's on her way to court. Montoya is later saved by Batman, but the comic closes with her family effectively cutting her off for good. Number 7, he murdered Jason Todd's father. Jason Todd might not be everyone's favourite Robin, but that doesn't take away from the kid's tragic origin, which DC managed to get right on the second go. In pre-Crisis continuity, Todd's parents are acrobats who are murdered by Killer Croc. Understanding that that particular origin may have been just a little derivative, DC opted to use a completely different one after the reboot happened, reimagining Todd as a headstrong street kid who Batman first encountered trying to steal the wheels off the Batmobile. Post-1986, Todd's parents were never acrobats either. Instead, his mother was an addict who was presumed dead, while his father worked as hired muscle for Two-Face. In the years following Todd's assumption of the Robin identity, it's revealed that his father Willis had been killed by Two-Face, and Batman, deciding that Jason shouldn't be in the business of revenge, kept it a secret for years. Number 6, he put Gordon on trial. The 90s may be reviled as a dark age for comic books, but one character who emerged from that decade with his head held high was Batman. Stories like Nightfall and the many featured within the pages of the Legends of the Dark Knight comic ranked among the character's greatest works, and though No Man's Land, another book from the era, isn't as good, it's still a pivotal tale in DC's history. The book revolved around Gotham being excommunicated from the United States, and the city itself being partitioned between various Batman criminals. Two-Face, as one of the Caped Crusaders' biggest adversaries, got in on the act, vying for territory with other criminals while also dealing with the remnants of the GCPD. Eventually, Two-Face is defeated by a resurgent Bane. In response, he kidnaps Gordon and places him on trial, cross-examining him as both his attorney and the prosecution, with Dent heading up the former and Big Bad Harv leading the latter. Fortunately, Dent wins in the end. Had he failed though, it's almost certain the commissioner would have been killed. Number 5. He terrorized his ex-wife and her husband. Batman: The Long Halloween is one of the greatest Batman stories ever told, and one that has managed to stand the test of time. Set during the second year of Bruce Wayne's crime-fighting career, it focuses on the trio of Batman, Gordon, and Harvey Dent as they take on Gotham's criminal underworld. Complicating matters somewhat is the emergence of several supervillains, with the Joker taking a particular interest in Dent and his family. The Long Halloween retold Dent's origin as Two-Face, and it was made even more heartbreaking by the fact that he had a wife who was desperate to start a family with her husband. Gilda Dent may have had a hand in the Holiday Killer's rampage, but she managed to pull her life back together after the event and remarried. Dent, jealous at her newfound love, kidnapped her husband and performed a mock disfiguration. Batman intervenes and Gilda later gives birth to twins, but the book, titled Two-Face Strikes Twice, actually reveals that the children were Harvey's all along. Number 4. He freed the Joker. Batman Hush came during a somewhat unconventional time for Harvey. He had undergone reconstructive surgery to have his scarred side erased and attempted to carve out a new role as an ally to Batman and Gordon. Neither trusted Harvey, and though Dent manages to save Bruce from Hush, he doesn't emerge from the comic untainted. During the story, Dent actually uses his connections to release the Joker from Arkham Asylum. Given the sheer amount of murder and mayhem the Clown Prince of Crime has gotten up to in the decades spent in Gotham City, that could potentially be considered as just about the worst thing Two-Face has ever done. Joker would go on to murder and wreak havoc against Batman, his allies, and Gotham on numerous occasions in the years following Hush's conclusion. And though it is always inevitable that Joker will break out of Arkham at some point, it's also true that Dent expedited the process. Number 3. He nearly beat Dick Grayson to death. Dick Grayson's Year 1 showcases his first adventures as the Boy Wonder, and also shows how he came dangerously close to death during his first encounter with Two-Face. Dent captures Grayson and beats him half to death, supposedly in revenge for Batman's failure to prevent his disfigurement, and he almost succeeds in killing him. The event later convinces Bruce to abandon his plans for a sidekick altogether, and proves to be the catalyst that makes Dick prove his worth as his adoptive father's greatest ally, going so far as to nearly kill Two-Face in response. When you push Dick Grayson so hard he nearly kills you, yeah, that's when you've gone that little bit too far. Trying to kill a kid, even for Two-Face, that's pretty dark. Number 2. He broke into the Batcave and attacked Grayson again. After Bruce Wayne's death in Batman Reborn, Dick Grayson took up the mantle of the Bat, donning the cape and cowl. Potentially one of the more overlooked books from that era is The Long Shadows, a short-lived series that showed Dick adjusting and settling into his new role as the Dark Knight. Few notice that anything has changed, but Two-Face does, realizing that this new Batman has a tendency to smile when the previous one didn't. Hatching a plan to prove his deception, Two-Face breaks into the Batcave and catches the new Batman off guard, during which time Dick hallucinates visions of Two-Face in his own Batsuit. Fortunately, Alfred comes to the rescue, but the pair still have a hard time convincing Harvey that Dick is the original Dark Knight. Number 1. He betrayed Batman and poured acid in his eyes. DC Rebirth's All-Star Batman was a great comic, and the first arc featuring Two-Face is a testament to that fact. Utilizing a Midnight Run-esque premise where Batman decides to cure his former ally when traveling away from Gotham, the book managed to provide a welcome contribution to the relationship between Bruce and Dent. Batman gets attacked by numerous other villains while trying to save his friend, only for Harvey to betray him by pouring literal acid into his eyes. The ultimate tragedy of this story, though, is that Batman never actually intended to find a cure. Instead, he fakes the creation of one, which Harvey then promptly takes, only for it to turn out that it was a sedative all along, which Batman uses to take him back to Arkham. Cynical, perhaps, but Two-Face has had plenty of opportunities to go good in the past. Unfortunately for Dent, it just seems as though Big Bad Harv is too great an influence to shake. So there you have it, folks, the 8 worst things Two-Face has ever done. Feel free to leave a comment down below with your own personal favourite of Two-Face's horrendous actions, and check out whatculture.com for daily news, lists, and articles. Feel free to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.